Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady in the Brady Dental Care Studio, and it's almost, it's creepy to say this, but it's almost back to school. It still gives me chills. And I'm an adult. I just turned 40, and it still scares me just a little bit. But, we gotta cover it. We gotta talk about what makes back to school special. What should your students be doing? And you as parents, what should you be focusing on this school year? And to do that, we've invited Leslie Nolte, the head of school for the Iowa Conservatory in Iowa City. Leslie, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Justin. I'm excited to be here.
So there is no reason to be fearful of school because, actually, one of the most critical aspects of education that's often overlooked is music. And that maybe sounds odd to some people. To me, it doesn't sound odd because I have a musical family. We know about the research and the brain development, all that stuff. So we're obviously going to be getting into all of that today with you. So thank you for coming. As a reminder, everyone, this podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeart, Amazon, and now it's on the X app. So you can listen to it on the X app. We're going to start uploading those. As a reminder, go ahead and give us 5 stars on your favorite app. That way, everyone can find it. There's some weird thing that happens when you give it 5 stars. It goes out to everybody and tells all your friends how cool it is or something like that. I don't understand how that works, but please do that. So, Leslie, thank you again for being on the show. First, let's talk about the concrete component of this. There is a virtual learning component to the Iowa Conservatory through Iowa City Schools. Can you talk about how that works? And then we're going to talk about why students should be interested in music education.
Absolutely. So Iowa Conservatory is brand new in Iowa City. It's about a 12-year project in the making. And what we discovered during the pandemic, a couple good things happened out of that pandemic for us as a school. And one was the accessibility to virtual learning. Iowa Conservatory does offer 24 hours a week for their arts education within the school, but certainly, and while the arts education is central, certainly the academics are incredibly important. And so we're just flipping the model a little bit by putting the arts first. And in order to do that, we partnered with the Iowa City Community School District, ICCSD's online program, OLP. And what that offers us is leeway to when the kids can take their classes, both synchronously and asynchronously. And that virtual learning component with our on-site learning coaches is really what aided the school to be able to open finally after so many years of in the works creation process. The availability for online learning allows us to put the kids in the academic classes, secondary to their arts education.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the pandemic, which was, of course, we don't want to get into that, but a lot of bad stuff, not exactly the best of scenario for everybody, but it is interesting the technology that it developed out of that. So you're partnered with Iowa City Schools. They do, I guess, for lack of a better term, they do the more academic, testing and math and that kind of stuff, and you do more of the arts stuff. But from a virtual standpoint, then it's kind of like a team effort.
Yes, all of the arts education classes, anything from dance kinesiology to music composition, those are all in person in our building. And then while in the library of our building during portions of the day, the kids will take their academic classes, traditionally math, science, English. We'll take those required classes that are required through the state and through the Iowa City Schools. They will take those on their own virtually in an asynchronous and an synchronous platform, which means some of those classes are totally virtual with recorded recorded teacher, and some are actually Zoom, where you have a live teacher, like we've known, like we've all learned Zoom to be. And what we're doing is we're flipping the model and saying, okay, let's put the arts first and academics as a very close second. But also with that virtual learning, we're taking away the passing periods and the lunch hours and the study halls. Certainly our kids get a lunch hour. That's not exactly, they do get a lunch hour, but the passing periods and the travel between, the buildings, or if they do Kirkwood classes and then they go back to their traditional high school for some of them, we're housing it all and putting the arts first. And it really is for the students who desire arts education to be central to their high school experience, and just might be looking for more than what their current high school may offer, but not downgrading the level of academics that they receive.
Yeah, it's interesting because at a time when, and you know this, a lot of schools are always struggling. It's been this way for decades. A lot of schools are always struggling to fund arts education at all. And we always hear in the news of districts and schools that are cutting arts programs, but you're going the entire opposite. Well, not the opposite way, but you're focusing on the arts and then bringing in the other aspects to education alongside the arts. Why? I think some people may think that's crazy. A lot of people view the arts as kind of a fun little hobby thing, and that's all. That's it's a fun thing for the students, and that's great. But the real classwork is math and science. So, why isn't that necessarily the case? Is there research that supports the arts as it aligns with test scores and other subjects?
Absolutely. The full child, the whole human being, to me, is the most important part for any success in adolescence. And for so many people, the arts are just at the core of helping them really discover who they are as an adolescent and grow into a young human. And if you are learning beside that confidence and growth and knowing who you are, academically, the sky's the limit. I mean, I absolutely believe that students, I'm a mother of 5, and I've seen this both in a positive and a negative way, right? 5 humans in my family gives me a nice little pool of information to feed different kids. Yep.
You can certainly call it that for sure. Also, you're probably tired, but
yeah, well, yeah. But, when young kids, they can't learn when they're uncomfortable or scared or lonely or fearful. And most often those adolescents don't feel that way when they're surrounded by like-minded people that have a like-minded goal. And I see so much of that I've been teaching dance and modern for 24 years. And one thing I really feel inside our dance company are adolescents that are growing into whole humans. And these are the same kids that are the valedictorians, or they choose when they graduate high school, they're not going to be a ballet dancer, but they instead, have a full scholarship to Michigan State, Georgetown, all of the schools that you would think you need to do nothing but academics to get into. And these are quote unquote ballerinas getting in. And to me, I've seen the research in real life for the last 25 years. But one tidbit of information that I loved when I was presenting this concept to investors, 4 or 5 years ago, was a quote from the Google CEO. And they said, we can teach whole liberal arts students how to Google, but I can't teach someone that knows how to Google how to be a whole human. And that
I like that.
Right. I loved it. Right. And that really is what we're doing. We certainly are a very serious conservatory for the people that are looking for that. But the other half of this, of course, outside of pre-professional training, are people that want high school to look different. And you might love the theater or writing plays or playing the piano, and you're academically really capable of virtual learning with a full-time, life or student academic coach that we have in the building. But you could leave having a beautiful high school career at Iowa Conservatory and of course go on to be that more traditional professions, which might look like a school teacher or a doctor or a nurse or an engineer. But back to that research and, the last 25 years of my experience, academically, you can just soar when you feel surrounded and supported and comforted.
I feel like throughout history, culture, various histories, various governments valued the arts a lot. But then all of a sudden about 1950s, maybe 1930s, I'm not exactly sure when it changed, but it seemed like things changed and we didn't necessarily value the arts at all. We became very utilitarian, like Taylorism was on the rise. People were viewed as machines. And in some way, I feel like it's interesting you bring up Google's CEO or the Google executive, because in some ways right now, the brain science is catching up. We're starting to see what the arts does to the human brain and how it helps in development. And what I really want to ask you about is, does this ability, like the arts, help people with creative thinking and problem solving? Right? Like that's what the research doesn't just suggest. We used to think it suggested that. Now it pretty much explicitly states that.
Yes.
So does this really, as AI comes online and companies start using AI to automate tasks that, usually like, coders and developers used to do, is like are arts programs kind of what students need right now to work well with AI and automation?
I think that yes, my answer is emphatically yes. I also feel with AI coming into, our daily lives, that the arts are more important. We are presenting ourselves a profession that cannot be taken over from AI. We are the live theater and educational theater parts. Imagine finally humans coming back to the theater because they're looking for that community. They're looking for that non-AI way of life. So there's that aspect of that coming on board that I feel like we're going to be on the boat that's sailing safely through this AI field, but also the creative solutions and teamwork and problem solving and the success that can come, or the ideas out of a group of 10 people who are working on the same project. Creativity, I do not believe in this performance art genre of life. I do not believe AI can touch much of that. And in order for people to use AI, like what you said with the coders, a creative brain is what needs to be at the table first.
Yeah, 100%. And, AI, I don't want to ever be that person that eats my words later. So maybe it's possible in the future that AI can learn to be creative. Maybe. I don't see it in the next 200 years at least. But I always tell, because I'm in tech, and I tell my clients, like, AI is really good at presenting information that's already there. But AI is not good at creating new information. And I think I want to move into like the skills necessary for a 21st century workforce, right? Like, how does music or theater or choir help develop those skills? This is kind of in line with the AI topic, but like, what skills are necessary in the 21st century workforce, and how does the music prepare students by giving them those skills?
Absolutely. I love looking at this problem with the fact that there's nothing new anymore. It's like nothing is really original anymore. And one thing that continues to be, it's like a remake of things along the way. And certainly it's more in depth than that. But how I feel, let me step back to like our project-based learning. So in the world of what we're trying to do, like what we say, the whole human and creative teamwork. And when you put together a play, you start with a blank piece of paper and you write the play. We get that. And then you have to, it's starting a business. It's finding the funding for the business. Let's pretend the play is the business is the play. You have to go from nothing to something on opening night, and then you close it out back to nothing except, a recorded piece of film to look back on. The group of people that do that have nothing, create something, and then close it up and sort of put it in a yearbook in a file folder. that is life over and over and over again. The entrepreneurial skills that that we need this in the future can be broken down to being handed a script, making it, creating the music composition on top of the text, creating the costumes and the backdrops and the lighting and the sound design, putting all of that together. You are really teaching these young people how to go from nothing to something, to build something out of nothing, a blank canvas that then put paint on it. Maybe a blank canvas with paint while you're listening to a fellow student's composition on the piano. These are life skills that, of course, I'm the one talking passionately about this. You cannot talk me out of the fact that an arts education does not set you up for any profession in the future. And that's what I think the future workforce needs. We need critical thinkers, team players, create something out of nothing when it feels like everything's already been invented. And that's why I can sort of like sing the praises of this team and our curriculum over and over and all day long.
So let's talk about engagement in schools in general. Does music education, I'm assuming that it also encourages engagement in just a general school atmosphere as well. I'm not sure if you have any data or any information on that at all.
I think music is one, and we're seeing this now with our recruitment. Music is still being regarded pretty highly in most public schools. Bands are strong, orchestras are strong, and it creates a community of adolescents within the arts education that I think is very healthy and strong for, kids to move forward. What we're seeing less and less of are visual arts programs being cut, theater arts, no dance in high schools unless it's the sports dance team. So I know that I sort of wandered around that question a little bit, Justin. I just feel like traditionally music, everybody benefits from it. And in schools, the people not playing the music still benefit from it, and the students that do. And of course, we have research that shows how students involved in the fine arts improves the ACT scores, the SAT scores, the magnitude of scholarships, getting into their schools of choice, and then of course, mental health. So to me, we need all schools to be doing this. And, it's sad when we hear about a rural school, especially in the state of Iowa, that, people get 21 minutes of visual arts once a week. That feels very backwards to me for the whole person.
Yeah, I mean, I see arts education being rolled back even in cities in Iowa too.
Yes.
So it's tragic across the board. And like I said earlier, it's only because I guess my personal opinion is because only recently have we started to have the proper research that shows how effective this is. I guess I think I am a little happy, though, to hear you say that music programs aren't getting cut as much as they used to. I'm not sure if you have any data on that, but that's encouraging to hear.
Those are and I'm talking, of course, I'm in Iowa City, so we have public schools here that have huge music programs, and that makes me so happy. What I don't have is the idea of how many music students are being supported in areas or opposite, how many music students want to be music students can't be supported because of the area that they're in. And a lot of cities, they have private companies that have such a thing. Like obviously, for the last 24 years, I've had a performing arts studio for the evening and after school kids, like a private dance studio. And smaller schools, they might be cutting programs, but they might just be cutting the minutes.
Oh, right? I see what you mean.
Right. So you can get, or there's so few minutes in the day that you're starting to have to choose from between sports, academics, and music. And my favorite story of my husband, who grew up in Sheffield, Iowa, and that was such a small school, and He graduated like early 90s, but would play football, and then they would pause before halftime for the players to put on their band uniforms. And then he would march with the trumpet, and then after he would, put his pads back on and complete the football game. And so the idea of that happening right now, I couldn't even imagine,
I want to go back to something you said about mental health, because that's obviously, and I don't have the data to suggest that mental health issues are worse than they used to be, or if we're just more aware of them than they used to be. I don't have that information. The information I do have is that we're certainly talking about it more. And so it's top of mind. It's a concern for parents. Heck, it's a concern for students. So what goes into, like, people hear, oh, music helps with mental health. Are they just supposed to play Beethoven or Mozart to their students? Or should they be actively spending X amount of time per week playing piano? What does it look like to kind of get the benefits from a mental health standpoint?
Absolutely. I want to start by saying I've been working with children for 25 years, and the last 4 years, I have never seen the kind of mental health declines as I did for the previous 20 years combined. And I'm talking about students that are deeply troubled and depressed and lonely. I've never seen such an abundance of, the biggest problem I'm seeing, of course, besides local kids taking their own lives, we're seeing more cutting, we're seeing more eating disorders. Wow. And I did not grow up with that. To me, it feels wholly increased. Pandemic certainly didn't help. With my own children, I hear from them and 5 groups of so many friends of different ages over the, they're a 10-year split in ages. But anyway, so mental health to me is so very important. And of course, we have the data that, studies suggest that exposure to visual arts and participation in creative activities actually makes positive brain changes. Improves the quality of life, being around humans within a culture of caring that care back. And so to me, I see it firsthand. I see it in front of, my eyes when we do that. And there was research has not always studied us, like you said, in the world of the arts, but researchers are placing much more emphasis on the benefits of creativity and then quantifying it in increasing detail. So certainly, I would love to, there was a study that it's often done on senior citizens, but, even dementia patients sitting still with no affect, with no music on in the room, and all of a sudden a dementia patient humming along to a Mozart tune when the music is playing. And if we can reach brains in that state, imagine what music can do for adolescent brains that are doing nothing but absorbing like sponges, from the ages 14 to 24.
Yeah, and to your point, the creativity aspect, right? Everybody wants creativity. Bosses say they want creativity. Companies want creativity. They want innovation. They want problem-solving skills. And, basically what you're saying is those come from the arts, period. They come from music. They come from jazz lessons, theater, choir, drama. That's where they come from. That's that part of the brain. That's how it develops. And if you neglect that part of the brain, you neglect the ability to create and innovate. So education in general, parents who may not understand what there's, I know parents are probably listening to this thinking, okay, cool, got to get my kids involved in the arts because I want them to be well-rounded. I want them to be creative. I want them to be innovative. I want them to be able to problem solve. What does that look like from an educational standpoint? Obviously, not everybody's from Iowa City. Not everybody can go to the Iowa Conservatory. So even if you're in a public school, maybe they do or do not have an arts program, you may or may not be able to enroll in it. What does it look like from a parent standpoint? What should parents be helping their students find? Is this just 30-minute music lesson a week? What does it look like?
I think the most important part is to find that community, in that for us, that community is absolutely within the arts. Creativity can be had. It's this sort of the age old story that we're all super creative until we're 8, 9, or 10. And then, life beats it out of us. And we're like, we should all be back to that 6-year-old skipping around on a beach where we have an entire world that we've created around us because nobody is sort of snubbing us or putting us in a box. So you can dance anywhere, you can sing anywhere, you can read anywhere, you can create something out of nothing anywhere. And I think it just engages our brain and it heightens enjoyment. And then there's the serotonin that floods our body because we are joyful and creating. We call it, it's like the maker's mark. The maker's mark can be seen inside of our brain. And to me, the easiest way to get there is through creativity and sort of being silly. Dance, sing, paint something. I was reminded recently of at Yale and Harvard, they're required to visit museums and describe the works in detail.
Interesting.
Right? Like there's this thing that, they're not going to a tap class per se, but they're going to a museum and then they're using, of course, their brain to describe it in details to one another for that importance. And these are the med students there.
Yeah, that's interesting because
if the Yale and Harvard med faculty says go to the art museum and look at art and then come back and explain it, that's kind of fun.
So should this be, because I want to clarify this so parents understand like they have a next step to take. Should they be enrolling in group music lessons? Should they be getting music lessons for their students? Should they be attending class? Like, is there something you'd recommend a student do per week that a parent can push them into something? Like, is it just music lessons? Is it a choir? Well, what specifically can parents latch on to? Like, give them an action step, I guess.
Yes, I would. I mean, I'm a big fan of group lessons. And that can be by way of a weekly choir or a weekly dance class, maybe a weekly visual arts painting class at your community center. To me, adolescents flourish more in groups than on their own, and more so when those groups are like-minded individuals that maybe share a common goal that are very supportive. And that's what I mean by the culture of caring. It's like, I don't think it's just plunking keys on a piano. To me, it's the music of the piano in a group where you have sort of your comrades, right? You have your people. I'd love to say that every community has plays that you can be a part of. I'm sure that's not true. I feel like community theater is really vibrant in the state of Iowa. I hear about shows all over the state. I get invited to them from ex-students all the time. So to me, it would be finding that art, but also that group, sort of that group friendship, or the friendship that comes along with just being a part of the same goal.
Yeah, and that's also actually a good point too. And that kind of reinforces the antidote for the mental health crisis we're in. This is a really good structured way to get students into a group setting and to kind of alleviate I think there was an article, actually we were just talking about this in the show last week with Jeff Wood, the founder of Gravitate, and he said there's a loneliness epidemic right now. And to your point earlier, the pandemic didn't exactly help these things that much, but getting students in these groups that are structured, this is a really, really fast way to cure the loneliness epidemic, but to do so in a safe environment where it's structured, where it's not awkward for them to meet new people. Like there's a sense of purpose, and they can kind of focus on a goal. It's not just throw them in a room and try to make friends. It's like you have this goal, which is to sing this song or play this song or paint this painting or make sculpture, and in the process, you meet people that are solving the same problems you are. Yeah, Leslie Nolte, Iowa Conservatory in Iowa City, the head of school for Iowa Conservatory. I really appreciate you coming on the show. How can people learn more about the Iowa Conservatory or more about the arts in general? How can they connect with you all?
Yeah, thank you for this conversation. First off, Justin, I love talking about arts education and adolescence and, young people that are going to be our future. So thank you. We are, me and my team, we're at iowaconservatory.org. We're brand new in Iowa City. We would, all of us are really excited to chat about our curriculum, why we're here, what we think we can be for the state of Iowa for those that are looking for something like this. Always given tours. Our new building, will be ready in about 36 hours with 3 days to spare before our first day. And we're just really excited to be this for the students that need us in the state of Iowa and, in surrounding states and of course the rest of the country. So thank you. We're happy to chit chat, healthy debates. We love doing it all. So reach out. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Leslie.
Thank you so much, Justin. I really enjoyed my time with you.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.